All right, there was surprise news yesterday about one of Hollywood's best-known movie franchises. A new deal will see Amazon MGM Studios take full creative control of the James Bond series.
That means longtime producers Barbara Broccoli and Michael Wilson will step back, ending a family legacy which dates back to the very first film starring Sean Connery over 60 years ago.
For more, let's bring in Brent Lang. He is executive editor at Variety. Just published an article on the deal. Joins us now with more. Brent, good to have you with us. Let's give folks a little bit of history here. A few years ago, Amazon bought MGM, which owns the Bond franchise. The Broccoli family, though, sort of remained with creative control, how Bond was portrayed, who he is. Talk about the control they exerted and how much we know about maybe why this is finally happening and Amazon's taking over creative control.
Yeah, I mean, for decades, the Broccoli family has controlled all aspects of the Bond franchise, from the theme songs to the way he takes his martini to his vehicle of choice. So they've exerted a kind of unprecedented level of control over the franchise. And I think what happened here is Amazon bought MGM for a little over $8 billion a few years ago, and they primarily did that because they wanted access to the Bond franchise. It was the crown jewel of the studio. And it gave them the right to distribute those movies, but they couldn't kind of call the shots on Bond's future. And what happened was the franchise was really at an impasse. The two sides were not getting along. It had been several years since No Time to Die had been made. It was actually made in 2019. It was released in 2022 because of COVID. And so there was a real sense that this franchise was going off track and something needed to be done, and they needed to really get moving on finding a replacement for Daniel Craig and producing another movie in this series. And I think that's what really kind of broke things loose here.
So now will we see this process sped up, do we think, casting a new James Bond, releasing a new movie, and when we find out any details?
I think you'll see it vastly accelerated. There was some hope that they would actually shoot a new James Bond this year. I don't think that's going to happen. They don't have a script. They don't have a director. They don't even have a story. And so before you can even go about finding a replacement for Daniel Craig, you have to have those elements. But I expect that will move very quickly now. And I think that it's not just about creating another sequel to the Bond series. It's about finding ways to expand this franchise, to really create some kind of cinematic universe similar to what we've seen Disney do with Marvel and Star Wars.
Which is, of course, drawing some criticism from some folks who don't want to see it, who like that a Bond movie is a special thing that you only get every few years. Let's talk about the thing everyone loves to talk about. Who should be the next James Bond? What's the buzz out there right now? Are there really any front runners?
Not really. I mean, everybody has a wish list, and you've seen the names, Josh O'Connor, Paul Mescal, Theo James, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, Idris Elba. But I think what you're going to find is that it will be somebody between the age of 30 and 40, because they want them to be able to play this character. It's a very intense, very physical role for 15 or 20 years and appear in several movies. So I think that's kind of the target age. I would expect it's probably not going to be somebody who's a huge star, because you want to sort of start them at a lower salary and then build them up over time. But it is going to be somebody who has some experience, because it's a huge amount of scrutiny that comes with assuming this role.
Paul Mescal, I hadn't heard that. I could see that.
That is, yeah. So especially after The Gladiator. People
yeah. You mentioned the cinematic universe, which obviously, I mean, it could certainly lend itself to that, kind of like spin-offs for certain characters or a Bond origin story. But those were things that the family had been historically against. Could that change now?
Yeah, I think it will change. That's sort of the thing in Hollywood right now. I mean, there are definitely people who feel that's a mistake, that it's better to kind of focus on quality and not quantity. But I think if you're a mega corporation, a big e-retailer like Amazon, I think you're a little more interested in profits than quality control.
Brent Lang, great conversation. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Great to have you.
It.